So, last Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, I got a text message from my brother Josh. And the text message was sort of peculiar in the way that it was worded. Essentially saying he was having a tough night and was wondering if I was around to chat. You know, the thing about getting these text messages from him, or phone calls like this from him, are that I know how involved they will inevitably be. I know that he respects my time and he doesn't ask things of me unless it's meaningful. Meanwhile, I had a deliverable due. It was like 11:50. I had some comms, like self-reflection due 10 minutes later. I knew that was going to be late. I decided to go out hanging out and having dinner and drinks with friends. I wanted sleep, like we all do, all the time. Maybe just a little bit of super quiet time. And what I ended up doing though was picking up the phone. The conversation initially didn't go so hot, because in the back of my mind I have this voice being like, Rach, you have all this stuff to get done, you wanted sleep, why can't, Josh just not get over this or not focus on this? And I hung up the phone with him 15 minutes later feeling kind of crappy. A minute later I called him back and said, why don't you come over? So at 1:30 Josh shows up at the door. I cook him dinner. We sit and meditate a bit. We talk together for half hour. I do my calm self-reflection and go to bed, and Josh subsequently stays at the house for 2.5 days, which was a pleasure. The point was, it wasn't always this way. When I was little, I grew up in a family full of conflict, of fighting pretty much every single day. And at the center of it, for no fault of his own, was my brother, 4, 5, 6, 7, being at the middle of my parents who thought so differently about the way they wanted to parent him. In school, he would get really distracted and the teachers would yell at him and they would get called in and there would be a fight. When we were at temple, supposed to be sitting there when the rabbi or cantor was singing, he'd be drawing and getting up and down, and my dad would get pissed about it. Or so on. You guys get the point, I don't need to belabor it. But as a younger sister, 4 years his junior, I sat there feeling why can't he just make it work? Why? I was so distraught about this conflict, about the conflict of my family, about growing up in that environment. And I blame my parents, but I blame Josh. I was why can't you just, it can't be easy for you. It can't be easy for us. I remember when I was in high school, I think it was maybe sophomore year, we took an annual vacation to Rhode Island, to Block Island. It's a small, really chill island off the coast. And like most family vacations, as we were getting in the car to go to Rhode Island, shit hit the fan. And I found myself sitting in a car, locked, with Josh. And Josh had one of the sets of keys, and my dad was outside the car screaming at us and threatening Josh specifically. If you don't get out of this fucking car, you're in deep shit. Get out of the fucking car. There are 2 sets of keys, so my dad goes inside and gets a set of keys and opens the back seat door where my brother and I were sitting and drags Josh out of the car. It may have happened, but that was the first time. It might have happened before, but to my knowledge, this was the one and only time that there was real physical fighting that went on between my brother and my father. And the only thing I knew to do was to throw myself in the middle of them, in the middle of the street, 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and break them up somehow. And meanwhile, the cops get called from one of the neighbors picking up the phone, and I find myself sitting in the nearby aqueduct with my mom trying to explain to the cops that everything was fine, even though my ankle was gushing blood because I had scraped the whole thing against the pavement as they were wrestling to the ground. And I swore to myself at that moment that I wouldn't come back to Boston. But as soon as I had the opportunity, I would leave and I wouldn't come back. And the whole time, like, I'm sitting here pointing the finger, like, at my parents, but also at Josh. Like, what the fuck? Why are you guys so fucked up? And my coping mechanism as the youngest daughter was to retreat, was to go socialize with friends and be the mediator, like, act like nothing was wrong. And so when I turned 18, I went to Philly for school. And like signed off, like basically threw in the towel and said, like, this isn't mine to own, this is your stuff to own. And most like hurtfully to me to this day was like, I said that to my brother, who this whole time, like my whole life, when I was a little baby, like before I was even like had conscience, Josh would like cradle me in the crib. He would like get into my crib and lie down and like snuggle with me. He's the brother who, when he was young, he would make me like art books, like full of this story of like the magic shark that would like, swimming through, and like this bright, brilliant shark that was a female because he was like so like all about his like younger sister. And the same brother that would like take me out with his friends, like the first time or the first few times I got drunk, I remember taking like shots that were lit on fire at some like awesome Boston apartment. Like he was so proud to be my brother. So it didn't really hit me that the onus wasn't just on Josh or my family, but it was on me until the week my dad passed away suddenly. At age 60, an avid rock climber, a healthy man, a doctor, at the time, one of my best friends, suddenly passed away. And we spent the week talking about family, the importance of family, how meaningful it is to be connected to your family, because quite frankly, a lot of us aren't. And the night before I left to go back to DC, back to like reality, we all go out to dinner, and Josh was like, I don't want to go to this restaurant. Like, I want to go downtown, or I don't like the vibe, or there was so much intensity that week. Like, this restaurant was probably irrelevant, but what ended up happening was like that was the focus. And here we were yet again having another one of these family episodes at like during this week where family was supposed to be the most important thing like ever, and like nothing else mattered but the fact that we were together. So I got pissed. What ended up happening was we left the restaurant before sitting down with my mom. She's driving and I start laying into him. And you guys know me, I'm like a calm, pretty chill, happy person typically, and was like yelling, being like, this isn't always about you. Why does there always have to be this issue? Like, you need to think about other people. Why can't you prioritize like family? And he's like, Rachel, stop. I can't hear this. Like, you need to stop right now. And I'm like, no, you need to listen to me right now. So I'm yelling at him, and my mom's driving, and all of a sudden Josh opens the car door and steps out of the moving car. My mom skids to a stop. He slams the door. He comes up to the back window and punches the window right next to my face. And I left DC the next morning without saying goodbye. So fast forward 8 months, and I receive a letter from him, which I want to share with you now. Excuse me if I get a little teary in advance. Rachel Linder Patterson. I am now at this moment expressing to you my clear feelings and understanding. You are a goddess of earth, daughter of the legacy of evolution, survival, brilliance, sacrifice, and perseverance of a diverse and long history of ancestry since the dawn of time. you and I, in our brief, fortunate lives, have had a unique experience amongst those in this world, a fascinating, specific set of diversity. You are a bright star with wonderful imagination, intelligence, and beauty. Remember what Dad stood for regardless of how things went. It is up to us to lay down the ignorant weapons of fear and anger that have been used so costlessly and recklessly in our family and our community, and instead carry on the illuminating and protecting armor of light and of love to shine our path ahead for all, healing the scars of generations and illuminating the bright, intelligent, and just vision of the future of our lives, family, and community. The choice of tools is required to experience greatness in the present moment where we always live. That usage of the infinitely applicable love gives us freedom and genuine connection, which we can build upon endlessly the structures of our bonds to each other. I love you very much, Josh. When I read that letter, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't Josh that needed to change. It was me. It's like the running away is an understandable coping mechanism. But ultimately, the challenge in this lifetime is to embrace, and it's to accept, and it's to unconditionally love no matter what the circumstance. And it's easy when it's easy for both parties. And it's a bit more difficult, but it's still easy when somebody else comes to you, but you're really grounded and solidified. But the hardest task about this thing, this unconditional love and unconditional empathy, it's hardest when shit is hard for you. And I made a commitment that day to re-engage. To re-engage with my family, to re-engage with myself, to re-engage with my best friend, Joshua. In each moment that we have the opportunity to host love for another person. And to always be expanding in our embracing of someone else, no matter if we can understand it or we can't. What I wanted 2 Sundays ago was not to pick up the phone. But I did pick up the phone. And then I invited Josh over. And that same night, together, we collaborated on this talk. Thank you.